This week we are looking at the internal environment, and this involves resources, capabilities, and core competencies. The knowledge objectives for this unit are that at the end of the session you should be able to explain why firms need to study and understand their internal organization, define value and discuss its importance, describe the differences between tangible and intangible resources, define capabilities and discuss their development, and describe 4 criteria used to determine whether resources and capabilities are core competencies. Also, you should be able to explain how firms analyze their value chain for the purpose of determining where they are able to create value when using their resource, capabilities, and core competencies. Define outsourcing and discuss reasons for its use. Discuss the importance of identifying internal strengths and weaknesses, and discuss the importance of avoiding core rigidities. The opening text in the 12th edition of the textbook, the opening case, speaks about Subway restaurants and their core competencies as a foundation for their success. So just a little bit of information about Subway. They opened their first shop in 1965. Their current portfolio of almost 35,000 units located in 98 countries. They have more locations than McDonald's, and Subway's focus is on eat fresh, high-quality foods, continuous training, customer service, and non-traditional store locations. All of those illustrate Subway's core competencies and the foundation for competitive advantage, which will be underscored in this chapter as we go along. Last unit, we looked at the external analysis and the external environment in general. We looked at the opportunities and threats in the external environment, which includes the general environment, the industrial environment, and the competitor environment. So by studying the external environment, firms identify what they might choose to do. The internal environment now looks at the organization itself, its unique resources, capabilities, and competencies that are required for sustainable competitive advantage. So by studying the internal environment, firms identify what they can do. In order to gain strategic competitiveness and above average returns, the internal organization must match the external environment. Key points for competitive advantage. No competitive advantage lasts forever. Over time, rivals use their own unique resources, capabilities, and core competencies to duplicate the focal firm's ability to create value for customers. With globalization, sustainable competitive advantage is especially challenging. Also, firms must exploit their current advantages while simultaneously using their resources and capabilities to form new advantages that can lead to future competitive success. Innovation and people are critical resources for organizations in their quest for competitive advantage. The sustainability of competitive advantage. Now, what does this really mean? So, sustainability of a competitive advantage is a function of the rate of core competence obsolescence due to environmental changes, the availability of substitutes for the core competence, and the imitability of the core competence. So sometimes your core competence can become obsolete, other companies can substitute it, and other companies can also imitate your core competence. And that is where you may not be able to sustain your competitive advantage over a long period of time. So let us look at the context of internal analysis. First, there is the global economy, which is traditional sources of advantages can be overcome by competitors' international strategies and by the flow of resources through the global economy. The global mindset speaks to the ability to study an internal environment in ways that are not dependent on the assumptions of a single country, a single culture, or context. And then analysis outcome is about understanding how to leverage the firm's bundle of heterogeneous resources and capabilities. This is showing the components of internal analysis leading to competitive advantage and strategic competitiveness. So first, you will have to discover what the core competencies are by looking at your resources, tangible and intangible, the capabilities, the core competencies as well. Now, there are 4 criteria for deciding whether or not your core competence can provide any sustainable advantage for the company. And that is whether your core competence is valuable, rare, costly to imitate, or non-substitutable. A part of the analysis, or another way to analyze the internal organization, is to look at the value chain analysis. And afterwards, we will also look at outsourcing as a function of the value chain. And all of this is in keeping with competitive advantage and strategic competitiveness. Analyzing the internal organization is about creating value. So by innovatively bundling and leveraging their resources and capabilities, and by exploiting their core competencies or competitive advantages, that is how firms create value. And value is measured by product performance characteristics, product attributes for which customers are willing to pay. All of this provides superior value, which in turn allows the firm to earn above average returns. The challenge of analyzing the internal organization now. Firms have to make strategic decisions. These decisions are non-routine. They have ethical implications. They significantly influence the firm's ability to earn above average returns. Strategic leaders make effective decisions regarding the firm's resources, capabilities, and core competencies and decide on their use. Also, managers face uncertainty on many fronts. There are proprietary technologies, changes in economic and political trends, societal values, and shifts in customer demands. And there are environmental factors which causes increasing complexity. Then we may have intra-organizational conflict, and this results from decision about core competencies and how to develop them. Some conditions affecting managerial decisions about resources, capabilities, and core competencies are uncertainty, complexity, and intra-organizational conflicts, as we just looked at some of them. So uncertainty exists about the characteristics of the firm's general and industrial environments and customer needs. And all organizations, especially in today's world, operate under the cloud of uncertainty. Complexity results from the interrelationships among conditions shaping the firm, and intra-organizational conflicts may exist among managers making decisions, as well as among those affected by the decisions. Other challenges of analyzing the internal organization is learning, which is generated by making the correcting mistakes, can be important in creating new capabilities and core competencies. Judgment is required under these conditions. So decision makers often take intelligent risks. With good judgment, successful strategic leaders achieve strategic competitiveness. Now we will be looking at the meat of the matter, which is the core competencies, capabilities, and resources. Resources are superior capabilities that are sources of competitive advantage over a firm's rivals. An integrated and coordinated set of actions taken to explore core competencies and gain competitive advantage is what capability is. And then resources now provide value to customers and gain competitive advantage by exploiting core competencies in individual product markets. Resources are the source of a firm's capabilities. They are broad in scope. They cover a spectrum of individual, social, and organizational phenomena. They represent inputs into a firm's production process. Alone, they do not yield a competitive advantage. That means that by themselves, they do not allow firms to create value that results in above average returns. Types of resources are tangible and intangible. Tangible resources are assets that can be seen, touched, and quantified. Intangible resources are assets rooted deeply in the firm's history, accumulated over time. In comparison to tangible resources, usually can't be seen or touched. So compared to tangible resources, intangible resources are a superior source of core competencies. Tangible resources are financial resources, the firm's capacity to borrow and generate internal funds. Organizational resources, which are formal reporting structures. Physical resources, which are sophistication and location of a firm's plant and equipment, distribution facilities, product inventory. And technological resources are stock of technology such as patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. Intangible resources are like human resources, where we have the knowledge, trust, skills, collaborative abilities. Innovation resources, which are like scientific capabilities, capacity to innovate. And reputational resources like brand name, perception of product quality, durability, and reliability. Positive reputation with stakeholders, example suppliers and customers, are intangible resources. Capabilities now emerge over time through complex interactions among tangible and intangible resources. It stems from employees, their unique skills and knowledge, their functional expertise. And capabilities are also activities that a firm performs exceptionally well relative to rivals. They are activities through which the firm adds unique value to its goods or service over an extended period of time. Capabilities exist when resources have been purposely integrated to achieve a specific task or set of tasks. They are often developed in specific functional areas like distribution, human resources, management, information systems, marketing, management, manufacturing, and research and development. This table shows examples of firms' capabilities. So a functional area, for instance, distribution, the capability would be effective use of logistic management techniques. An example of a firm that would display these capabilities, the distribution capabilities, Walmart. Also, Microsoft have the functional area of human resources, which for their capabilities motivating, empowering, and retaining employees. Further down the line, we see that Hugo Boss and Zara has the ability to envision the future of clothing, while Caterpillar and Otis Elevator Company, they use innovative technology, development of sophisticated elevator control solutions, digital technology, and that kind of thing. So within their functional areas, this shows what capabilities are and give you some examples of firms that exhibit these capabilities. You can read the chapter. This should be in the chapter in the textbook for you to read it a little bit more in detail. So building core competencies now. So there are two tools firms use to identify and build core competencies. The first is the use of 4 specific criteria of sustainable competitive advantage that can be used to determine which capabilities are core competencies. Then there is the value chain analysis, and this tool helps select the value-creating competencies that should be maintained, upgraded, or developed, and those that should be outsourced. So the 4 criteria of sustainable competitive advantage. Capabilities must fulfill 4 specific criteria in order to be core competencies. It has to be valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and non-substitutable. Valuable capabilities help a firm neutralize threats or exploit opportunities. Rare capabilities are not possessed by many others. Costly to imitate usually relates to historical, which is a unique and a valuable organizational culture or brand name. An ambiguous cause, the causes and uses of a competence are unclear. And then there is social complexity, where interpersonal relationships, trust, and friendship among managers, suppliers, and customers cause the capability to be costly to imitate. Non-substitutable capabilities speaks to no strategic equivalent is available. They have firm-specific knowledge. They have a good organizational culture, and they also have superior execution of the chosen business model. Sustainable competitive advantage exists only when competitors cannot duplicate a firm's strategy or when they lack the resources to attempt imitation. It exists until competitors can successfully imitate a good service or process. It lasts for a very relatively long period of time if all four of the criteria discussed are satisfied. Competitive consequences now focuses on capabilities that yield competitive parity and either temporary or sustainable competitive advantage. So you have three performance implications. Parity, you earn average returns. Temporary advantage is average to above average returns, while sustainable advantage, the firm will earn above average returns using valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and non-substitutable capabilities. This table shows the combination of capabilities that will cause a firm to either earn below average returns, or above average returns. And it depends on whether the answer to the individual questions about capability, whether it's valuable, rare, costly to imitate, or non-substitutable, whether those answers are yes or no. If all of them are no, then you're earning below average returns. If you have an even contribution of yes and no, then you can earn average returns, while as you go further down the line, you see that if your capabilities are valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and non-substitutable, then you have a sustainable competitive advantage and will earn above average returns. So we will look now at the other method of analyzing your internal organization and building your core competence, which is the value chain analysis. This allows the firm to understand the parts of its operations that create value and those that do not. A template that firms use to understand their cost position, facilitate the implementation of a chosen business level strategy, is the value chain analysis. Both value chain, primary, and support activities should be analyzed. Competitive landscape demands that value chains and supply chains be examined in a global context. Each activity should be examined relative to competitors' abilities and rated as superior, equivalent, or inferior. To become a core competence and a source of competitive advantage, a capability must allow the firm, 1, to perform an activity in a manner that provides superior value relative to competitors, or 2, to perform a value-creating activity that competitors cannot perform. So the value chain activities, the primary activities, are activities the firm completes in order to produce products and then sell, distribute, and service those products in ways that create value for customers. The support functions now are activities the firm completes in order to support the work being done to produce, sell, distribute, and service the products the firm is producing. So this now is a model of the value chain. You will see down the bottom that the primary activities, which are supply chain management, operations, distribution, marketing, and follow-up service, and they are supported by finance, human resources, and management information systems. So this is the value chain where we have the primary activities and the support activities as well. Creating value through the value chain activities now, just a little bit more detail about each of them. So the supply chain management, that is activities including sourcing, procurement, conversion, and logistics management that are necessary for the firm to receive raw materials and convert them into final products. While distribution is about activities related to getting the final product to the customer. Operations is the activities necessary to efficiently change raw materials into finished products, and marketing, which includes sales, are activities taken from the purpose of for the purpose of segmenting target customers on the basis that their unique needs satisfy customer needs. And finally, we have follow-up service, which are activities taken to increase a product's value for customers. And all of these activities contribute to customer value. So we have the support activities now, which also contribute to customer value. So we have finance, which are activities associated with effectively acquiring and managing financial resources. And human resources are activities associated with managing the firm's human capital. And management information systems about activities taken to obtain and manage information and knowledge throughout the firm. The value chain analysis looks at social capital when firms have strong positive alliances with suppliers and customers. Also need to examine trust, which is required to build social capital, whereby resources such as knowledge are transferred across organizations. Then there has to be good judgment, where you have to be pivotal in evaluating a firm's capabilities to execute its value chain activities and support functions. Along the value chain, some companies will outsource activities along the value chain. So they may produce the product, but they have a separate distribution channel. Or in the opposite, another outsourcing firm may do the product and they distribute it themselves, or they have a marketing firm that does their marketing, etc., etc. So outsourcing really is the purchase of a value-creating activity or support function from an external supplier. Effective execution includes an increase in flexibility and risk mitigation and a reduction in capital investment. Global industries trend continues at a rapid pace. Firms must outsource activities where they cannot create value or are at a sustainable disadvantage compared to competitors. The strategic rationales for outsourcing are that few organizations are competitively superior in all value chain activities and support functions. So by outsourcing activities where it lacks competence, the firm can fully concentrate on those areas in which it can create value. Also, freeing resources for other purposes redirects efforts from non-core activities towards those that serve customers more effectively. Specialty suppliers can perform outsourced capabilities more efficiently. Also, the companies share in the risk, which reduces investment requirements and make firms more flexible, dynamic, and better able to adapt to changing opportunities. Providing access to world-class standards, the specialized resources of outsourcing providers makes world-class capabilities available to firms. Outsource those value chain activities and support functions that are not a source of core competence. Concerns are about innovation, technological uncertainty, and job loss. Usually, these revolve around the firm's innovative ability and loss of jobs to external suppliers. Then there is offshoring, where foreign supply is a foreign supply source. For instance, the call center would be offshoring your customer service function. Firms must identify their strengths and weaknesses. Appropriate resources and capabilities are needed to develop desired strategy and create value for customers and other stakeholders. The right resources, as opposed to many resources, are those with the potential to be formed into core competencies as the foundation for a competitive advantage. Tools, example outsourcing, can help a firm focus on core competencies as the source of competitive advantage. Core competencies have potential to become core rigidities. Former core competencies that now generate inertia and stifle innovation can cause core rigidities. The external environment, conditions, and events impacts a firm core competencies as well. So at the end of the day, the internal organization strategy must match the external environment. So you have to see what the firm can do internally, and then you look at the external environment to see what the firm might do in light of the opportunities and threats that are in the external environment. So now you are going to read chapter 3 in the textbook, download and complete the tutorial sheet for unit 3, and attend your tutorials prepared to answer questions and contribute to discussions for next week. Thank you.